Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the sixth green chair of the energycluster.ch. My name is Frank Skurge and I'm the CEO. Climate change is reality. We hear in the news, in the media every time about the collateral damages of the climate change, about the lack of water, about the glaciers that go back, many things that have consequences for the next generations. I want to discuss this kind of topic and to see whether the politicians and the economy and the society are actually working well together, if the dialogue is working or not. And I will do that with a very special person. And I'm extremely honored today to welcome the serial explorer, psychiatrist and ambassador, pilot, searcher for clean technologies, combining innovation and adventure to tackle the great challenges of our time and boost our economies. Bertrand Piccard, welcome on the sixth green chair.
Thank you, Frank. Very happy to be here.
Thank you. Bertrand, you're continuing the exploration and innovation mind already in the third generation of your family. What have you learned from your father and grandfather? Are you going even beyond this incredible mind heritage? And if yes, how and by what means?
I learned from them that scientific exploration has to serve quality of life of humankind. You know, when my grandfather went to the stratosphere in 1931, his goal was to show that it was possible to fly above the bad weather in thinner air and reducing fuel consumption because there would be less air resistance. When my father went down to the Mariana Trench in 1960, he wanted to show that there was life down there in a time where governments wanted to dump their radioactive waste in the oceans. And of course, I wanted to continue. And if Breitling orbiter balloon flight around the world was a personal dream, you know, show that something impossible can be fulfilled, Solar Impulse was at another level. It was really a way to show that clean technologies and renewable energies can achieve impossible goals. And now it's continuing with a 1,000 solution challenge of the Solar Impulse Foundation. So it's always pioneering, exploring other ways to do in order to make better quality of life.
So it's about making the impossible possible, but also if you look at the times of your father or your grandfather, what do you think? Actually, in what way do the challenges differ from the times of your fathers?
100 years ago, exploration was very much about conquering new territories because humankind has not been yet everywhere. Today, even to the moon, there has been people walking. So I think exploration has taken now another direction, which is more about making the Earth a better place to live. So we need explorers in politics, in human rights, in protection of the environment, in fighting poverty, in education, in health, because all the strategies that were maybe okay in the past have to be adapted for the future. So we need to learn to think at another level to take a better direction.
You work in two areas. So one is humanitarianism and the other is environment. How do you combine these two areas in your work?
You know, more and more we see that the best way to help the poorest people to have access to economical development is to give them renewable energies, to give them new technologies that can help them to save natural resources, and to have an off-grid local development. So more and more we see that fighting poverty, fighting climate change, implementing solutions for the environment, it all goes hand in hand.
And when we talk about clean tech and renewables, what are your propositions?
The first thing we hear is that it will not be possible to install enough renewable energies to fulfill our needs of energy. And I think we're making a big mistake because we forget that 3/4 of the energy produced is wasted either by bad behaviors or by the losses of inefficient electric systems or energy systems. So we need to work on the efficiency to reduce the needs and work on the implementation of renewable energies that will be enough to fulfill the needs we reach with an efficient technology. So there is a lot of hope to reach this level, but of course we have to start, not just speaking about it and doing nothing like it has been done in the past.
But I think hope is probably not enough. So we also need the politics, we need a political framework, we need a stimulus for the people also to invest. It's not the government who will resolve the problems. It's the economy, it's the society, it's everybody together. So you're also an ambassador to the UN and the European Union. Let's talk about your commitment within the UN for a moment. Next week, you will attend and speak at the COP26, the United Nations Climate Change Conference. Which will be actually your main message there? And do you also personally meet with head of states?
Yes, that's the goal, of course. And what happens in the COPs is that governments and negotiators are afraid to make ambitious commitments because they believe it will be detrimental for their economic development. And my role is to show them that it's exactly the opposite. Today, there are so many new technologies, clean technologies, renewable energy sources that are cheaper, either because they produce energy for cheaper or because they save energy and they save natural resources. So the more commitments you take to tackle pollution and climate change, the more opportunities you have for the industry to be more profitable and to get new marketing fields. So you see that it's really a change of paradigm, because in the past, protection of the environment was an expensive burden, and today it's a fantastically profitable opportunity.
So let's break it down concretely. If I were Joe Biden now, what would be your message to me?
It would be the fact that our world, and especially the United States, is losing a lot of money by being inefficient, badly insulated houses, losses of energy, old systems to transport, produce, or consume energy. And the biggest market opportunity of the century today is to modernize all the infrastructures. All the infrastructures. So either it is expensive and it will never happen, or it is profitable and it's a way to reduce unemployment, it's a way to create jobs, it's a way to be more competitive in the industry. And this is something where the United States can be extremely well involved, because they have the technologies, but they just have to implement them.
What about if I were the president of the People's Republic of China?
There are two ways to put the Communist Party of China in trouble. It is unemployment and pollution. And today it's very interesting to see that for the first time in history, the new sources of energy and the new clean technologies allow to create jobs while protecting the environment and reducing pollution. And it's a unique configuration that has to be taken.
As a former diplomat, and I was working in Moscow also, obviously I'm very interested in knowing what you'd say actually to Mr. Putin.
To Mr. Putin, I would never attack him on the production of gas and oil, because most of the GDP of Russia depends on it. I would tell him that if Russia could become more energy efficient, it would be a huge market internally, and Russia would even save a lot of consumption of gas and oil, and it would be much more for export. So by being more energy efficient, they would be richer and cleaner.
Let's go back to Switzerland. In Switzerland, the people voted for the exit of the nuclear power generation. This implies that within a few decades, the energy mix must become a lot more renewable. This is similar all around Europe, actually. It's not just for Switzerland. But the Federal Council has recently interrupted the negotiations of the EU-Swiss Institutional Framework Agreement. However, the cooperation between Switzerland and the European Union in the energy sector is central. And I'm sure you've read it also in the news lately that they talk about a possible sudden electricity blackout if no agreement can be found with the European Union. What can we do, and how can you, as an ambassador to the EU, help Switzerland?
Excuse me, but this blackout story makes me really laugh. We are in 2021, and we're speaking of a blackout in 2025, as if we would do nothing for 4 years. But in 4 years, we have to implement renewable energies. We need more wind energy. We need more solar energy. We need more biomass. We need to exploit geothermal much more, and hydroelectricity can be increased. But we have to do it now. It's absolutely ridiculous to imagine there will be a blackout in 4 years and not work on renewable energy production, and of course work on the reduction of the consumption by being more efficient. We need to renovate all the buildings. We need to go on electric mobility instead of thermal engines that are wasting hell of a quantity of fuel. We're just wasting energy everywhere. So let's start to work on it instead of saying that by doing nothing there will be a blackout. Let's wake up.
And that's, but I think also in Switzerland, a lot is being done at the moment. Many things are being pushed. But again, I mean, we always, for many, many decades, we depend on electricity import from the European Union, from import of other energy resources from abroad, and we will not be independent to 100% within the next 4 years. But this cooperation with the European Union is very important. And let me ask you again, as an ambassador to the European Union, how can you help precisely Switzerland to maybe support that?
To be more precise, I'm not an ambassador to the European Union. I'm a special advisor to the European Commission, and especially to Maroš Šefčovič, who is Vice President of the European Commission, and he's in charge of foresight of Europe. What are the strategies we have to implement to have a good future for Europe? And I work with him to deploy all these strategies and legal frameworks as an advisor. So, of course, Switzerland has to work with Europe, and Europe has to work with Switzerland. But now we have to explain to each other what are the real needs we have, and what are the values that cannot be dismissed. In Switzerland, we have direct democracy, which is not the case for most of the countries of the European Union, and this is something that Europe has to understand. Now, Switzerland has to understand also that we cannot go there very proud and believing we are the big kings. We have to be a little bit more modest in the negotiations. And what was missing until now, and I see it also on the other side when I'm in Brussels, is that Switzerland is not explaining enough what is Switzerland, what are the needs of Switzerland, what are the limits in the negotiation process that the Federal Councillor can have. And I don't think it's a good way to tell to the Europeans, we stop to negotiate. We stop to speak with you. How can we imagine that? We can tell them, until now we have not come to an agreement. The situation does not allow us to sign the agreement, but let's continue so we understand you better, you understand us better. And you know, what we always need to do when we have a negotiation is to take the intersection. You have Europe, you have Switzerland, what do we have in common? And first, we have to speak about what we have in common, what are our interests, instead of looking what are our divergences and differences.
I agree with you. It's against...
And there is another thing also. In the negotiations between Switzerland and Europe, Switzerland takes one topic at the time. And you can never negotiate one topic at the time. You have to put all the topics together on the table. And what you lose on one topic, you will gain on the other topic. So there are a lot of things. It's the general framework agreement, but there is energy, there is the new jet fighter plane for the Swiss Army. Well, maybe it's interesting to buy a European plane if we negotiate with Europe, and what we give on one side, we obtain in the other one. And I don't think we can make silos like this, like it has been done, instead of being systemic and transversal.
Very clear message. If we go in, if you look even beyond Europe, the gap between the rich and the poor is actually getting bigger every day. investments in renewables also is not affordable for all people. At least that's what's being said. How can we overcome this dilemma? And what are your positions?
I don't agree with the wording. When you invest in renewable energies, the definition of investment is the fact that you put some money and you get more money back. That's an investment. If it's a cost, it is money that is lost. So the fossil energies is a cost because you have nothing left once you burned it. If it's renewable energies, once you've invested in it, you have an infrastructure. It is producing wind and solar, just to take these examples, at a quarter of the price of nuclear power, gas, oil, or coal. So even the poorest countries can benefit from it. It's very interesting to see. At the Solar Impulse Foundation, we have identified some systems, microgrids, that are installed in the poorest regions of the world. And it's a pay-as-you-go system. Solar panels, irrigation pumps, lighting system, batteries, plugs for the smartphones, and so on. And people pay with the smartphone the energy they use. So there is a return on investment for the company who installed it. And there is a local development for people who are poor, who are off the grid, who are neglected and forgotten, but suddenly they have a social development and they have some economical wealth being created. So this is the way we have to understand. The energy transition is a fantastically profitable investment. It is not a cost.
Thank you very much. So that's also your proposition in that sense would also be to maybe concentrate some of the development work, actually, for example, Switzerland does in such a direction, or what do you think?
Absolutely. In the development aid, we have to choose the countries that are not corrupted, because it is very well known that a big part of the development aid money is going in the pockets of some dishonest people. So this has to be controlled much more than it is now, to save this money, and then to put it in infrastructures that are modern, to make a coal power plant, to make a refinery, to make tank stations, or to build cars with a thermal engine. It is money that is lost. It's a cost. But if we make renewable energy production, if we make energy efficiency systems, smart grids, and things like that, you increase the value for the country. You create local economic development. You create wealth.
With Solar Impulse, you've shown what is possible in the air. Now you want to show what is possible on the Earth by selecting 1,000 solutions that protect the environment in a profitable way. How do you actually choose these solutions? And are some of these solutions actually Swiss?
Yes. Now we have identified 1,300, and I think 150 are Swiss. So it's a good sign. And how do we choose them? We identify them in startups or in big companies. And the submission goes through a group of experts. We have between 350 and 420 experts. And they analyze and assess the solutions with 3 criteria. It has to be credible and feasible today, not a vague idea for the future. It needs to be environmental friendly. So either to do better for the environment than the previous systems, or even to be an opportunity to protect actively the environment. And it needs to be profitable for the company who produces it and for the consumer who uses it.
You also say that you want to present these 1,000 solutions to world leaders. How do you want to bring them? What's your plan? Will you travel around with 1,300 people, or how will you do that? Obviously, it's a joke, but I mean, how do you plan to present actually that? What's
you know, the governments make a commitment to be carbon neutral in 2050 because it's fashionable and they cannot say anything else than that. But let's be clear, they don't know how to reach the goals. And they still believe it's a handicap for economic development. They still believe it's expensive. So what I'm doing with the Solar Impulse Foundation, with all my team, is that we study for the countries that we meet a solution guide that can be implemented in the country. So we come with a selection of the solutions that are the biggest leverage to reach carbon neutrality. And then we show that to the governments, to the industries of the country. And the next step, if they like it, is to help them to implement them.
A very important sector in Switzerland is the financial sector. According to you, what role should this sector take in our common endeavor to improve the environment for the next generations?
We have to understand that, of course, there are some short-term investments where maybe you can make money with oil and gas and coal, and people are still doing it. But if we speak of the majority of the investment, which are pension funds, life insurance, things like that, sovereign funds, the target is 20 years. And in 20 years, you can be absolutely certain that gas, oil, and coal investments will be divided by 2 or 3 in the value, because it will not be worth as much, because it will be too expensive, there will be carbon taxes, and people will not use it as much. So you can be sure that the value of your investment will drop, like a stranded asset, like the subprimes in 2008. So just for a question of logic, of safety, even not for the environment, but for your portfolio, you need to go on the technologies that will worth something in the future, which are renewable energies, energy-efficient infrastructures, circular economy, basically all these type of solutions that we have identified. And to prove that it's already a big source of interest, there are 2 banks, not in Switzerland, it's BNP Paribas and Rothschild & Co., who have created 2 investment funds to invest into the companies who have labeled solutions by our foundation. And up to now, it's 350 million euros that are being put into these solutions. And that's just the beginning. It will expand a lot because it is now a new investment opportunity that is very, very profitable.
Thank you very much, Bertrand. Now, I want to speak to you as Bertrand, as a Swiss citizen, and also as a father of 3 daughters. How sustainable does Bertrand live? Do you come, or did you come here with a Benson car?
I have an electric car. I have a Hyundai Kona. It's a light car, not too big. I have 400 kilometers of range, 420. I have solar cells at home, fully insulated house, and heat pumps. And now more and more when I fly for fun, it's with electric airplanes, because now there are some 2-seater electric airplanes that are available in some of the aero clubs. So each time I have to take a normal flight or a normal car, I offset my carbon with the My Climate Foundation in Zurich. So I can say that I am really putting my actions where my mouth is. And my investments also. We're speaking about investments. We're doing an experiment with Globalance Bank in Zurich. And they made a portfolio for me with only a selection of companies that are respecting the Paris Agreement. And we are now comparing for the profitability of these companies with normal companies who are polluting. So very interesting to see. Up to now, it's very encouraging.
Again, a very personal question. Obviously, for the next many decades, you will continue to inspire us to be an ambassador to the world and help this planet to be a better place. But what do you see? Do you think one of your daughters will continue this heritage, also as an explorer?
My daughters have integrated the pioneering spirit into everything they do. For them, it's just part of their education. So they will use it in whatever they're doing.
It's fantastic. You have just published a new book. What's the main topic of that book?
The title is Realistic. I'm showing another narrative for the ecology. I'm showing that ecology can get out of the sacrificial philosophy of degrowth, of reducing the economical development, to go into a qualitative growth. It means an economic growth where you make, or where you create the wealth, not with the quantity of the consumption, like now, but with the quality of the efficiency. And the quality of the efficiency is now what is the most profitable. It's where you save money. It's where you have the new business opportunities. And this is where you can create jobs and create value. So I'm trying to show protection of the environment as something exciting for the population, raising enthusiasm, not threatening their life, and also very, very attractive, financially speaking, for big corporations or even for countries who will understand that they can create more jobs if they protect the environment than if they destroy the environment.
Unfortunately, time is almost over, but if you had to address one or two main messages to the Swiss politicians and the Swiss citizens, what would that be?
I would remind them, or I would remind you who are listening, that until now, the legal framework is not modern. The legal framework is based on the old technologies we are still using and which are very polluting and inefficient systems. So today, because the technology can be modernized, the legal framework has to be modernized also. The legal framework has to be much tougher in terms of environment standards, in norms for efficiency, for energy, and so on, because it is possible to be much more ambitious in the legal framework. So what will happen if you put the norms and the standards much more ambitious? It will pull all the solutions to the market. And no one can say, what I do is legal even if I pollute, because it will not be legal anymore to pollute. And this is the best way to not only protect the environment, but to stimulate the economy, to create jobs, to have all these new clean technologies arriving on the market and allowing the citizens to live much better with more purchase power and much less energy, resources, and money wasted.
Bertrand, thanks a million for having been on the green chair. I wish you, obviously, in your private and professional life, much success and good luck and best health after all.
Thank you, Frank, and thank you for the invitation and congratulations for what we see here outside. All these exhibitors, the schools coming, the visitors, the decision makers visiting all these new solutions. You are doing great. It's a great energy day here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bertrand.